There is a specific reason Sean Diddy Combs is panicking right now, and it has nothing to do with copyright law. If you've been scrolling through the headlines today, December 2nd, 2025, you've likely seen the explosion. The narrative being pushed by the mainstream outlets is simple. Diddy's legal team is firing off cease and desist letters to Netflix, claiming the new docuseries produced by 50 Cent uses stolen footage. They want you to believe this is a standard intellectual property dispute, a disgraced mogul trying to protect his image from his old rival. They are painting a picture of a petty feud over a few unauthorized clips. But that is not the reality. The reality is that Diddy isn't trying to stop a documentary. He is trying to suppress a confession. The footage in question, specifically a clip filmed just days before his arrest, doesn't just make him look bad, it potentially destroys his entire defense strategy for the 70+ civil lawsuits still waiting to drain his bank account. We are talking about a man who has been filming his own life since he was 19 years old, obsessively documenting his rise. And now, those very takes have fallen into the hands of the one man in Hollywood who wants to see him burn, 50 Cent. In this video, we are going to answer the 3 questions that actually matter. First, what exactly is on these stolen tapes that has Diddy's lawyers threatening Netflix with immediate legal action? Second, how did 50 Cent get his hands on Diddy's personal unreleased archive that was supposed to be locked away? And third, why does this specific footage shatter the character rehabilitation strategy Diddy was counting on for his appeal? We have the timeline, we have the quotes from the cease and desist letter, and we have the motive. Let's get into the receipts. To understand why this specific leak is so catastrophic, we have to look at the timing. We need to go back to the source of the panic. According to the cease and desist letter sent by Diddy's legal team on December 1, 2025, just yesterday, the issue centers on the Netflix series Sean Combs' The Reckoning. The letter, which was obtained and cited by CNN, explicitly accuses the production of using private moments and privileged legal strategy that were never authorized for release. But here is the hook that changes everything. The footage wasn't just some B-roll from a party in the early 2000s. The footage that has Diddy spiraling was filmed on September 10, 2024. Let's put that date on the timeline. September 10, 2024 was exactly 6 days before federal agents handcuffed Diddy in that New York hotel lobby. This was the peak of the pressure cooker. And in this stolen clip, which is featured in the Netflix trailer, we see a side of Diddy that was never meant to be public. We see him in his hotel suite, phone in hand, looking completely cornered. And he says, verbatim, "We're losing. We need to find someone who will work with us, who has worked in the dirtiest of dirty businesses." Let that sink in. The dirtiest of dirty businesses. The expectation from his camp has always been that Diddy was the target of a witch hunt, a victim of overzealous prosecutors and opportunists. That has been the line since the raid on his homes in Los Angeles and Miami. They've argued that his freak-offs were consensual, private lifestyle choices. But this clip, this isn't about lifestyle. This is an admission of needing dirty tactics to survive the legal onslaught. Why does this matter right now? Because Diddy is currently sitting in a New Jersey federal prison serving a 4-year sentence after his conviction in October. He's already locked up. So why fight this clip so hard? Because the criminal trial was just the beginning. The real war is the civil litigation. According to reports from The Guardian earlier this year, Diddy is still facing roughly 70 civil lawsuits. These are the victims suing for damages, for trauma, for financial restitution. In a civil trial, the burden of proof is lower than in a criminal court. In a civil trial, a video of the defendant explicitly asking for dirty help days before his arrest is nuclear. It implies consciousness of guilt. It implies a willingness to obstruct justice. It implies that he knew the walls were closing in and was looking for an illegal exit ramp. His lawyers know this. That is why they're not just asking Netflix to take it down nicely. They're calling the use of the footage fundamentally unfair and illegal. They are claiming it violates attorney-client privilege because the footage was allegedly part of a legal defense preparation project. But this brings us to the second and perhaps most shocking question. How did they get it? If Diddy was filming this for his own private archive or for his legal team, it should have been on an encrypted hard drive in a lawyer's safe. Instead, it's streaming on Netflix to millions of subscribers. Here's the hook that changes everything. The existence of this footage confirms a rumor that has been circulating in Hollywood for years, that Diddy was obsessed with his own legacy to the point of self-sabotage. According to a statement from Diddy's own spokesperson to The Guardian yesterday, Diddy has been amassing footage since he was 19 years old to tell his own story in his own way. He had videographers around him constantly. He was building a library of his life, likely believing that one day he would edit it into the ultimate biopic of the Last Dance-style documentary that would cement him as a cultural icon. The irony is tragic and absolute. The very mechanism he built to glorify himself, constant surveillance, constant recording, has become the weapon used to dismantle him. So how did the footage migrate from Diddy's vault to 50 Cent's production company? We have to look at the chaos surrounding the raids in March 2024. When Homeland Security raided the mansions in Holmby Hills and Star Island, they seized electronics. They seized computers, phones, and hard drives. However, the footage in the Netflix documentary, specifically the September 2024 clip, was filmed after those initial raids. This wasn't seized by the feds in the first sweep. This suggests something much darker for Diddy, a leak from the inside. Industry insiders and legal analysts have been speculating that during the chaotic months leading up to his indictment, the circle of trust around Diddy evaporated. Staff members, videographers, and assistants were being subpoenaed. People were scared. When you're working for a man who was talking about dirty business and facing life in prison, your loyalty tends to have a price tag. And who was waiting with the checkbook? Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. We need to talk about the 50 Cent factor, because this isn't just a producer credit. This is the culmination of a decade-long dismantling. Expectation? 50 Cent is just an internet troll making memes. Reality? 50 Cent is executing one of the most profitable revenge plots in entertainment history. Per Variety reports from earlier in 2025, 50 Cent sold this docuseries to Netflix after a massive bidding war. He didn't just tweet about Diddy. He monetized the downfall. By securing this stolen footage, 50 Cent has effectively hijacked Diddy's own autobiography. Diddy wanted to tell his story in his own way. 50 Cent took the raw materials of that story and re-edited it into a horror movie. This psychological warfare is unprecedented. Diddy is sitting in a cell in Fort Dix, watching his rival profit off the very tapes Diddy commissioned to glorify himself. It is a level of petty that is almost Shakespearean. But let's get back to the money, because that is where the epidemic really lies. Why fight the release of the documentary now? Diddy's already sentenced, since serving 4 years. The public already thinks he's guilty. What difference does a Netflix show make? Here is the payout for this section. It's about the appeal and the assets. Diddy's legal team is currently appealing his conviction. They're arguing that the evidence used against him was prejudicial and that the government overreached. A documentary that airs privileged legal strategy conversations like the dirtiest business clip could theoretically be used by his defense to argue that his right to a fair trial was violated again. They're trying to create a narrative that the media and the government conspired to leak protected material to poison the jury pool, or the public pool in this case. By sending a cease and desist letter, Diddy's lawyers are laying the groundwork for a future argument. If Netflix ignores the letter, which they clearly have, as the show is debuting, Diddy can sue Netflix for hundreds of millions of dollars. Remember the timeline. Diddy previously filed a $100 million lawsuit against NBC Universal for a different documentary. He is not afraid of litigation. His strategy now seems to be, if I'm going down, I'm going to sue everyone on the way down to fund my legal defense. However, the stolen tapes pose a much more immediate threat to his wallet than Netflix does. We have to look at the 70 civil suits. We mentioned them earlier, but we need to understand the scale. These lawsuits aren't just asking for apologies. They're asking for settlements. They're targeting his publishing rights, his real estate, and his liquid cash. In those civil cases, the plaintiff's lawyers are going to subpoena the raw footage that Netflix used. They're going to want to see the rest of the tape. If Diddy was recorded saying, "We're losing" on September 10, what did he say on September 11? What did he say in August? If Netflix legally obtained this footage, it means the footage is out there. It's discoverable.
Diddy's lawyers are trying to block the documentary not just because it's embarrassing, but because it acts as a catalog of evidence for every other lawyer in America who is suing him. It alerts them to the existence of a treasure trove of self-incriminating video. This is the dirty business coming full circle. Diddy wanted to record his life to prove he was a titan. Instead, he recorded the evidence that proves he was running a panicked, crumbling operation. Let's look at the expert lens. We spoke to legal analysts who specialize in entertainment law, and the consensus is that Diddy's claim of stolen footage is a Hail Mary. Unless Diddy can prove that the specific videographer signed a strict non-disclosure agreement, NDA, that explicitly forbade licensing the footage to third parties and that Netflix knew about this breach of contract, it is very hard to stop a documentary on public interest grounds. Netflix and 50 Cent likely had their legal teams vet the chain of title for that footage for months. They wouldn't release a flagship docuseries on December 2 if they weren't 99% sure they owned the rights to the clips. The fact that Diddy is claiming it was stolen from an unfinished project suggests he considers the footage his intellectual property. But if he didn't pay the bills, or if the ownership structure of his production company was messy, which happens when an empire collapses, he might not own his own life story anymore. The reality is, Diddy lost control of his narrative the moment the feds walked into his house. Now he is losing control of his own image rights. So to answer the three questions we started with, what is on the tapes? A desperate and varnished look at a mogul realizing his empire is over, explicitly asking for dirty help, which destroys his innocent victim defense. How did 50 Cent get them? Likely through a videographer or insider who flipped as the money dried up, and the legal pressure mounted, allowing 50 Cent to legally purchase the rights to Diddy's own archives. Why does it matter now? Because this footage serves as a roadmap for the 70 civil suits that will strip Diddy of whatever wealth he has left after prison. We usually end these deep dives with a look at the PR spin, but in this case, the PR is dead. Diddy's spokesperson calling the documentary a shameful hit piece is the only card they have left to play. But here is the final insider takeaway. Keep an eye on the credits of the documentary. Look for the names of the production companies listed alongside 50 Cent's G-Unit Film and Television. If you see a name that used to be associated with Diddy's inner circle, you will know exactly who flipped. The betrayal is always in the fine print. This story isn't just about a rapper going to jail. It is about the total commodification of a downfall. 50 Cent proved that if you wait long enough, your enemy will not only destroy himself, but he will film it for you, and you can sell the rights to Netflix. If you want to understand the full playbook of how celebrity legal teams try to suppress evidence like this and usually fail, you need to check out the Fresh Celebrity Tea playlist right here. We break down the legal filings that the mainstream news won't touch. Click that and I'll see you in the next one.